I am constantly connected subconsciously to my past selves, and me and they may not know it. And I'm constantly subconsciously connected to my future selves. Some of my future selves are so advanced that they do know it, right? And certain moments of the day, I know it because of my theory or my awareness at the time. And so to fully be whole or to be optimal, I can say, okay, so I'm going to find my resonance with my past selves, maybe just starting with myself 1 second ago. Let's take baby steps. And I'm going to find my resonance with my future selves, and I'm going to try to pretend that I'm entering it, dropping into resonance. And a wise person, my son, once told me, with these spiritual techniques, you pretend. It doesn't have to be real. And then it can become real. But you start by pretending, visualizing. So you visualize to be integrated with your future selves, which is kind of easy because we presume them to be wiser. Our past selves, we have a lot of judgment. They got punked, they were mean to people, right? But we should love them and integrate them. But if we do that equally in both directions, and then we just sort of move our identity to the center of our bodies, at our heart, right? Then for me, that is a deep, helpful life lesson that has come to me like just by studying this physics view that we work on at this really geeky level, right?
So, I mean, just because we're here, I want to unpack how the implications this has on what our intuition could be, because if our future descendants, right, are the future humans that we eventually become, have the ability to, I guess, communicate through us in subtle ways that can then push us in the directions of either service to self or service to others, I would love for you to share a little bit more about your perspective and on that.
Well, so we have to disassociate this idea of knowledge from goodness, good or evil, right? I mean, obviously, knowledgeable people have chosen to use knowledge for self-service.
Yeah. It's like Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker both have access to the Force.
Exactly. Yeah. So if we take that idea of realizing that the 100 million species that have lived on this planet since about 4 billion years ago, they're all just different cousins evolving on a fractal evolutionary tree, and we take that forward, like we discussed earlier, we're going to have descendants that are more knowledgeable than us, more conscious, bigger consciousnesses, maybe hyper transdimensional consciousnesses. And some of them can be into a thought experience for themselves of service to self. And others can be the opposite. But in our theory, everything emerges from everything else, right? I emerged from all of the trials and tribulations of life on this planet, right? And my genetic history and my grandparents and so on. So anyway, we with this view and the self-simulation hypothesis, which is an inherently non-local. So local is basically an old school kind of Newtonian view where it says, hey, if it's not happening right here, right now, I have no access to the future or the past other than what's written in books, okay? And if I can't hear it with my eardrums, can't see it with photons hitting my rods and cones in my eyes, then it's just imagination. It's no real connection of anything. But if you reject that, right, and you say, well, no, we should be able to connect, even if we don't understand the physics of it yet, then that means that there would be a virtual zoo of consciousnesses. There could be a consciousness of Earth in principle. There can be a collective godlike consciousness that's the uber consciousness. There can be all sorts of consciousnesses in between that do not all have to fit some picture of, angelic goodness. They can be whatever they want, and they are. And we have free will. So they can play mind games, they can whisper in our ears, and this can be the case for both the helpful ones and the others. They whisper in our ears, they come through our subconscious, they can perhaps manipulate events a little bit. So when we talk about just talking to our future selves, that's one cool thing. I try to do that sometimes, but I also try to think, okay, well, there's a lot more, right? I can connect to this pan-consciousness God substrate that we believe must exist for the self-simulation hypothesis to be possible. And I can connect to other consciousnesses like the earth. And I don't have to know what that consciousness is like exactly. I certainly not an anthropomorphic version of consciousness. And by the way, I can't really define consciousness. And scientists, from neuroscientists to psychologists, they don't claim to have a consensus definition on that word, consciousness. So we know things that it does, like it seems to choose, it seems to think, it seems to be aware. But we don't have a scientific agreement on what that word consciousness really is. So anyway, but whatever it is, I believe that, at least from our theory and our work, that you can connect to it and form strange loops. So a strange loop is sort of like that quantum entanglement where you start to become like something greater than the two of you added up, something that's synergistic, like 1 + 1 is 3. And that's the strange loop. You can modulate it. You don't have to form a strange loop with whatever's coming at you. You can have your own sovereignty, and you can then seek out and invite other consciousnesses to enter into strange loops, whether that be an animal or nature or some version of yourself that literally exists in the future. So it's really a much more exciting reality than my myopic view of materialism that I had before. It's really quite surprising to me that I'm not a materialist anymore, because I was like so thought that was just the smartest thing at the time. But when I really look back, like, why did I think it was smart? It was because I was a sheep. I was basically too busy with my business and my life to do my homework and check things out for myself. So I figured, well, all the smart people that I see in the documentaries, they seem to imply that reality is essentially meaningless, and there's nothing greater, there's no, consciousness, there's nothing spiritual. And so I kind of gave away my vote by just saying, I'll ride with those guys because they look smart. Mm-hmm. And then I turned out later, when I started checking it out, to kind of feel like, dang, I got punked. Yeah. So I'm happy about it. My point is that it's a much more beautiful reality than I thought it was. And there's so much I don't know about it, but so much to explore, so much, consciousness landscapes to experience.